What is spiritual culture? Its chief methods and goal are defined by the essential nature of man, which we saw is the likeness of God. When man is born, his consciousness is confined to the three lower divisions of his spirit, the physical, animal, and concrete, intellectual, Sahu divisions of the spirit. As these irrational and divisive faculties are the only guides to his consciousness and will, his behavior is subject to error. This is the cause of all that is wrong in the world. Spiritual culture, then, is a system that methodically leads man's consciousness to the higher parts of his being, wherein dwell those faculties that contain the essence of God's attributes. In short, its goal is to raise his consciousness and spiritual power. The acquirement of wisdom, the intuitive knowledge that frees man from errors, and the spiritual power to achieve his will-making criminal acts unnecessary is the result of achieving the goal of spiritual cultivation. We can already begin to see that not all religions share this understanding and this goal. For some, man is essentially a sinner, i.e., confined to his animal spirit and concrete intellect, and can therefore only be saved by the intervention of a savior outside of himself, or can only be kept from doing wrong by threats of a doomsday or eternal damnation that awaits the sinner. In the traditions of Canaan, its Kabbalistical teachings, and Black Dravidian India, man's salvation can only be achieved by the elevation of his consciousness to the higher part of his being and the increase of his spiritual power, that he may be free of the limitations of the physical world. Ignorance and impotence are the father and mother, respectively, of all evils in the world. The exact manner in which the spiritual cultivation of man is to be undertaken, the schedule and the method, is shown once more by the tree of life and the metaphorian, incorrectly called myth, of Asar, which incidentally is the oldest recorded initiation doctrine known to mankind. I have adapted the Greek term metaphorion to metaphorion to coin a new term to be used in place of the term myth. The distinction cannot be encapsulated by a mere definition. As you read through the following chapters, you will realize that these stories don't fit neatly into the category of allegories. Neither do they bear much similarity to the myths of Rome, Greece, the Middle East, etc. When they are related to the tree of life and to its related initiation and meditation systems, they will be seen to be poetically rendered spiritual, scientific principles. According to the story, in the most ancient of times, a Kemetic king named Asar discovered the method of raising his consciousness to the highest division of his spirit and increasing his spiritual power to its highest potential. Spheres 0, 1, 2, and 3. As a result, he was able to bring civilization, a spiritually controlled way of life, to the people, with its accompanying social harmony, peace, and prosperity. The reader must recall what was said in previous chapters regarding the Ba, or Asar man. Order in the land was maintained by a system that effectively developed the moral faculties in people, and by allowing only such men and women who had developed their moral faculties, spheres 4, 5, and 6, to hold positions of government. It wasn't long before his youngest brother, Set, symbol of the dedication of our intellectual faculties, logical and artistic, to the service of the sensuous and emotional nature, became jealous of all the adulation and homage paid to Asar. Driven by his lust for power and the rebelliousness of the animal spirit against the order and laws imposed by Asar, Set, with the assistance of a confederacy of no-gooders, the Sebal, from Sebek, deity of the 8th sphere, killed Asar. They then hacked his body into 14 pieces and scattered them all over the land. It is said that a shrine to a deity emerged at the place where a part of his body fell. Those with understanding will grasp what is implied regarding polytheism. With Asar out of the way, Set usurped the kingship. and proceeded to terrorize the world. He created the first empire, rule of a foreign power over others, and replaced the system of maintaining social order through moral cultivation with a policing system, as symbolized by the fragmenting of the body of Asar into pieces. He separated religion from the state, education, separated God from nature, from man, separated spirit from physical matter, the divine from the mundane. In short, he instituted an insidious system of dividing and segregating all things and people from each other and the whole. In short, he alienated man from God, the world, and himself. Set's rule, of course, is that of all Sahu men on the social level, and the rule of the faculties of the animal spirit and Sahu, spheres 7, 8, and 9, parts of the spirit in all men. Everyone, deities included, feared him. He was invincible in war and violence, which were his chief means of settling differences as well as the objects of his worship. No one opposed him. Many even basked in the material pleasures with which he bought them off, all except Asar's two youngest sisters, Aset and Nebet, ninth and seventh spheres respectively. They searched for and found the dismembered parts of Asar's body, reunited them, wrapped the body in white linen as a mummy, and buried his body at the bottom of the river. They set for his protection the great serpent Kemeteth, or Kundalini. Some say that with the words of power given to her by Tahuti, others say that with Asar's choicest part, she immaculately conceived a son, Heru, to Asar, who as a legitimate heir to the throne could challenge Set, who had usurped it. And as in the Christian myth, which was copied from the Osirian Metaphorian thousands of years later, Set, hearing about the birth of a king who would challenge his reign and save the kingdom,
In truth and righteousness is in our ear giving irreverence. And I tried with an undefeated genealogy. It is written chronologically. Such history is based upon a fundamental background, as even the prophet Marcus Garvey had prophesied as African fundamentalism. And our cause in America at this time is to bring forth our people, which was robbed by our slave masters back from the 18th and the 17th centuries, and we come now to redeem them through the power of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie. And I, true just man, is in this country to see that all democracy and all demonical spirit that is in this world be completely destroyed down onto our feet through His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie. He is the first creation birth from in centuries past. He is the foundation of creation. He is the Riftif Tafarai Buchananai, first name. He is now the precious ointment. He is the living and true King, Creator, divine objective of our present days, and will be forever and ever our King and Lord and Creator forever. All people, not Rastas alone. For the whites, for the blacks, and for the Indians, and for everyone that I know upon earth, His Majesty is their powerhouse. He is the King, He is the ruler, He is the divine objectives, and there is no other than He, Rastafari. Knowing that His Imperial Majesty H.I.M., I have to worship Him in truth and righteousness. For He is no other name than that can secure man's subjection from sin and condemnation. So and I represent our Father as Rasta. So and I give Him thanks annual for such fundamental reasoning that God had given unto I and I. True love, true word, true sound, true power. True earthquake, true lightning, true thunder, storm, cyclone, tidal wave, and all tempestuous, roaring elements from creation to destroy the wicked nation and set Rastaman free for redemption, which is now. and eternity. Jah, Rastafari, His Imperial Majesty Emperor, highly
heard the shepherd calling. I lead it to the path of righteousness. Rastafari, thy shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to rest up in green pastures. There is the word of righteousness by his name's sake. Though he walk through the valley of shadow of death, thou shalt not fear. And I'm high. The sheep heard the shepherd calling. Rastafari bring back his own. But there was 99 in the shepherd's tent. One stray and gone away. The sheep heard the shepherd say, come to Zion, everything is ready. Oh, blessed Redeemer, King Creator. Johnny, the Almighty. The invisible, visible. Without father, without mother, yet father, yet mother. The first.
Elijah Rastafari, foundation of creation. And I know history has proven and showed that Ethiopia is a cradle of civilization. Ethiopia is the incubator of the earth where life has first started to exist from. And I also know Ethiopia as our ancient Christian king, man, from the year 4475 BC, that's before Christ. Before any Western side ever knew anything of civilization or know anything of Christianity. And I know even Revelation 5 has shown up on his vesture and up on his ties. It was written kings of kings and lords of lords. There were none before him, and there shall be none after. For he is the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. Eli Selassie, he is also the fullness of King Solomon, the returned Messiah to earth this day. For in prophecy I showed you that in this day he shall come with this name that is so terrible and dreadful. Rastafari. That's what the world heard. I'll have to pull the fullness of the truth of creation. As Rastafari lives and reigns forever and ever. One black love, His Majesty is the creator for the earth. And I know that prophecy has shown that anyone who really have the Ark of the Covenant is really creation, the master, and the rightful ruler. It has shown that His Majesty is the monument, the Bible owner, creation, the master. But then first, I know that Rastafari is really the head of every fullness, truth and right. We know that even His Majesty had even set up the Declaration of Human Rights and even fulfills the League of Nations, which the whole Western world had found themselves guilty within the Muslim war and Muslim attack at Christian Kingdom Ethiopia. For Italy said without they have the ruling power of Ethiopia, then they could never rule the earth. And we know that His Majesty set up the League of Nations, which they all break away now, come to reform this United Nation. It's the same charter of His Majesty's League of Nations. They have been used right now within the United Nations. So we know that He's a right to rule by sovereign right. His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie. Give thanks and praise unto the Most High every time.
I will stand to not give up, and to the south keep not back. Send my sons from far and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Called by my name. the earth as the waters cover the sea. Multitude in the valley of the city. For they will I be with them for my peace, said Rastafari.
Selassie, he's the owner, founder of sun, moon and stars, man, woman and children, green herb, heat, air and water, and all creeping things upon the face of this earth that have breath, those that fly within the midst of heaven, and those that move within the great and small waters, and those that are hidden from the face of man, internally live, Jah Rastafari, let all living things call him. He is without father, he is without mother, without beginning of days nor end of time. Hebrews 7 declare it biblically. No descent, having neither beginning of days, in priest Melchizedek, yet father, yet mother, without bride, without farm, yet bride, yet farm, all vide and farm, unsearchable, coming through lineage, through even Jesus Christ, 2,000 years ago, coming to Judah, who prove a better testament than priest Melchizedek, as it is written in same Hebrews 7, coming to Acts 2nd, 19 verse, as it is said, men and brethren, let me freely speak of the patriarch David, who is now dead and buried, but his sepulchre is here with us now. Understand that? And through the lineage, according to the flesh, through David's line, Christ must return to reign upon his throne. Haile Selassie is greater David, greater son, who stand to rule and reign worldwide. Unfathomable, the master builder of creation, the Almighty in person, natural man. Haile Selassie is a title given to Rastafari. Malachi first declare it. The heathen shall shook at his great and dreadful name. Ras mean king. Tafari mean head creator. He is redeemer, king, creator, in bliss, return to reign forever. Jeremiah here declare it. I am black. Astonishment is being taken out upon me. I am one forever. So this one is one. So Haile Selassie, the might of the Trinity, Jah Rastafari is one. One heart, one love, one moon, one earth, one life. So there must be one God, the Almighty Jah Rastafari. I and I was being taken away as captive. Surely, from a long, long time ago, we tried the I and I still was in Egypt and just bust the scene too. Now you bring the music through the temple of Moses and man walk on dry ground. Jah and do it again. This day I shall bring the captivity in this decade of Judah and Jerusalem, Ethiopia. When all eyes shall see and know that He is Selassie, Jah Rastafari, reign forever and forever. For He angel will be coming, falling down before Him. He touched lightning and it scorched. He rebuked the wind and chastised thunder. He's almighty in supremacy, ruled among the mighties. Him alone, the only international field marshal, general, Haile Selassie, Jah Rastafari, to the world. Sila. whirlwind. El Marcos, Messiah David, who let the black world do reality. Oh, what a Marcos, Messiah David, that give the power of authority. Marcus Garvey traveled from Africa in the black man's line. He teach us how to live and said, be careful how you sign. The prophet tried with iron captivity, and he started to work in a Kingston city. El Marcus, Messiah Garvey, who led the black world to reality. Oh, what a Marcus, Messiah Garvey, that give the power of authority. This young man started to work as he just leave school. A printer he becomes and he started to rule. He used Jaja axe, he dropped the big tree by teaching us our rules and our nationality. Why don't them feel Marcus, Messiah Garvey, who led the black world to reality? Oh, what a Marcus, Messiah Garvey, that give the power of authority. Marcus never weary, Garvey never fear. He tried it in the prison, he tried it in the jail. The prophet take the rough road to the mountain top. Unite the poor and needy, then protect the handicapped. Why don't them feel Marcus, Messiah Garvey, who led the black world to reality? Oh, what a Marcus, Messiah Garvey, that give the power of authority, great authority, heavenly authority.
Seemed to hold in her mouth all of the sounds of Pauline's soul. Standing a little apart from the choir, Ivy sang the dark sweetness that Pauline could not name. She sang the death-defying death that Pauline yearned for. She sang of the stranger who knew. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I'm tired, I'm weak, I am worn. Through the storms, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call. Hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on. Thus it was that when the stranger, the someone, did appear out of nowhere, Pauline was grateful, but not surprised. He came, strutting right out of a Kentucky sun on the hottest day of the year. He came big, he came strong, he came with yellow eyes, flaring nostrils, and he came with his own music. Pauline was leaning idly on the fence, her arms resting on the cross rail between the pickets. She had just put down some biscuit dough and was cleaning the flour from under her nails. Behind her, at some distance, she heard whistling, one of those rapid, high-note riffs that black boys make up as they go while sweeping and shoveling or just walking along. A kind of city street music where laughter belies anxiety and joy is as short and straight as the blade of a pocket knife. She listened carefully to the music and let it pull her lips into a smile. The whistling got louder, and still she did not turn around, for she wanted it to last. While smiling to herself and holding fast to the break in somber thoughts, she felt something tickling her foot. She laughed aloud and turned to see. The whistler was bending down, tickling her broken foot and kissing her leg. She could not stop her laughter, not until he looked up at her, and she saw the Kentucky sun drenching the yellow, heavy-lidded eyes of Charlie Breedlove. When I first see Charlie, I want you to know it was like all the bits of color from that time down home, when all us children went berry picking after funeral, and I put some in the pocket of my Sunday dress, and they mashed up and stained my hips. My whole dress was messed up with purple. I never did wash out. Not the dress, nor me. I could feel that purple deep inside me. And the lemonade Mama used to make when Pap came in out of the field. It'd be cool and yellowish, with seeds floating near the bottom. And that streak of green them June bugs made on the trees the night we left them down home. All them colors was in me, just sitting there. So when Charlie come up and took on my foot, it was like them berries, that lemonade, them streaks of green the June bugs made all come together. Charlie was thin then, with real light eyes. He used to whistle, and when I heard him, shivers come on my skin. I was born in Laredo, Ohio, 1931. My mother and her family from Alabama, my father from Georgia. My maiden name is Wofford. My married name is Morrison. I was a very good student, but I don't think I went to college because of that. I wanted to leave that town, and that was the way to go. I chose Howard because it was a black university, and I really wanted to be among what I thought would be intelligent black people by the boatload.
Although she and her sons now have an apartment in New York City, Toni Morrison's real home is an hour's commute away in the town of Spring Valley in Rockland County, New York.
So she sits across the river. She took me to her real estate person who showed me 11 houses in that day. And my mother says to me, you moved all the way to New York to live in a place that looks like Laredo, Ohio. And I said, yes. When I wrote Sula, it was because I knew then I couldn't stop writing. The same thing with Song of Solomon. I always wrote for the people in the book. those are always the people over my shoulder who watch. And they say, and say that. Or they say, okay, that's just about right. I suppose the blue sky was about one's dependency on the world for identification, self-value, feelings of worth. Whereas I wanted to explore something quite the opposite in Sula, where you have a woman who is whimsical, who depends on her own instincts. And both exaggerations I find deplorable, but my way is to push everything out to the edge to see if what it is really made, so that Sula would be, quote, a free woman. There's a lot of danger in that, you know, because you don't have commitments and you don't feel that connection. I think freedom ideally is being able to choose your responsibilities. Not having any responsibilities, but being able to choose which things you want to be responsible for. And so she is paired with a friend, Nell, who is the salt of the earth, who takes on the responsibilities of her children and whatever, as opposed to her very close friend, who has none, accepts none, and really and truly operates out of whim, and whatever mood strikes her. Eva was mean. Sula even said so. There was no good reason for her to speak so. Feeble-minded or not, old, whatever, Eva knew what she was doing, always had. She'd stayed away from Sula's funeral and accused Nell of drowning Chicken Little for spite. The same spite that galloped all over the bottom, that made every gesture an offense, every off-center smile a threat, so that even the bubbles of relief that broke in the chest of practically everybody when Sula died did not soften their spite and allow them to go to Mr. Hodges' funeral parlor or send flowers from the church or bake a yellow cake. She thought about Nathan opening the bedroom door the day she had visited her and finding the body. He said he knew right away she was dead, not because her eyes were open, but because her mouth was. It looked to him like a giant yawn that she never got to finish. He'd run across the street to Teapot's mama, who, when she heard the news, said, "Ho!" like the conductor on the train when it was about to take off, except louder. And then she did a little dance. None of the women left their quilt patches in disarray to run to the house. Nobody left the clothes halfway through the ringer to run to the house. Even the men just said, when they heard. The day passed and no one came. The night slipped into another day and the body was still lying in Eva's bed, gazing at the ceiling, trying to complete a yawn. It was very strange, the stubbornness about Sula. For even when China, the most rambunctious whore in the town, died, whose black son and white son said when they heard she was dying, "She ain't dead yet." Even then, everybody stopped what they were doing and turned out in numbers to put the fallen sister away. It was Nell who finally called the hospital, then the mortuary, then the police, who were the ones to come. So the white people took over. They came in a police van and carried the body down the steps past the 4 pear trees and into the van for all the world, as with Hannah. When the police asked questions, nobody gave them any information. It took them hours to find out the dead woman's first name. The call was for Miss Peace at 7 Carpenter's Road. So they left with that, a body, a name, and an address. The white people had to wash her, dress her, prepare her, and finally lower her. It was all done elegantly, for it was discovered that she had a substantial death policy. Nell went to the funeral parlor, but was so shocked by the closed coffin, she stayed only a few minutes. The following day, Nell walked to the burying and found herself the only black person there, steeling her mind to the roses and pulleys. It was only when she turned to leave that she saw the cluster of black folk at the lip of the cemetery, not coming in, not dressed for mourning, but there, waiting. Not until the white folks left, the grave diggers, Mr. and Mrs. Hodges and their young son who assisted them, did those black people from up in the bottom enter with hooded hearts and filed eyes to sing, "Shall we gather at the river?" over the curved earth that cut them off from the most magnificent hatred they had ever known. Their question clotted the October air. Shall we gather at the river? The beautiful river. Perhaps Sula answered them even then, for it began to rain, and the women ran in tiny leaps through the grass for fear their straightened hair would beat them home. Sadly, heavily, Nell left the colored part of the cemetery. Further along the road, Shadrach passed her by. A little shaggier, a little older, still energetically mad, he looked at the woman hurrying along the road with the sunset in her face. He stopped, trying to remember where he'd seen her before. The effort of recollection was too much for him, and he moved on. He had to haul some trash out at Sunnydale, and it would be good and dark before he got home. He hadn't sold fish in a long time now. The river had killed them all. No more silver gray flashes. No more flat, wide, unhurried look. No more slowing down of gills. No more trimmer on the line. Shadrach and Nell moved in opposite directions, each thinking separate thoughts about the past. The distance between them increased as they both remembered gone things. Suddenly Nell stopped. Her eye twitched and burned a little. "Sula," she whispered, gazing at the tops of trees. "Sula." Leaves stirred, mud shifted. There was a smell of overripe green things, a soft ball of fur broken, scattered like dandelion spores in the breeze. All that time, I thought I was missing Jude. And the loss pressed down on her chest and came up into her throat. "We was girls together," she said, as though explaining something. "Oh, Lord, Sula," she cried. "Girl, girl, 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 girl." It was a fine cry, loud and long, but it had no bottom, and it had no top, just circles and circles of sorrow.
Therefore, I know what I am. Je suis comme je suis né comme ça, et c'est tout. Il faut pas expliquer des choses comme ça. But at any rate, whatever I have done it because I felt I wanted to do it, not because it was a popular thing to do. And therefore, I did not publicize what I was doing, because I was not doing it for commercial reasons. Any more than today, whatever I do is not for commercial reasons, except for what I'm doing in order to survive on the stage. That speaks for itself. You have to find the core of the matter. And don't you think also that perhaps it might have something to do with our involvement in Vietnam? Because our boys feel that if we are good guys, we are the ones that are most apt to get the gun, to go shoot and kill and steal. And as a result, me as a mother was brought my child up by the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, and do all of the good things that Christianity should be all about, and supposedly is all about. That's what they have been teaching us ever since existence that we can remember. That now you are taking the child and throwing it into a position where all of these 10 Commandments are now meaningless. And after it is going through that ism, you bring it back home and you don't detrain it. You throw it back into the society. And it still has that killer instinct that you've taught it, whereby us mothers have been trying to say, Don't kill, don't steal, don't do anything. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And now it's confusing not only to the child, but it's also confusing to me as a parent. And I always want to come home. But I want this country to fulfill its promises. You know, even going back to the seasons of 40 acres and a mule, we never got that. We never got the freedom. They only took the chains off. But they never allowed my soul to exercise itself like a decent human being, and that's what I'm fighting for all of us. I don't care who it is, what his spirit was all about. It's very easy for people to throw stones at you when they don't understand, rather than searching to find out what you are all about. I think that's a great mistake that we make between each other. Human beings are supposed to love one another and recognize each other as whatever it is that we have to offer in order to enhance the other one, help them grow and build and become whatever it is that human beings should really be all about, rather than allowing ourselves to be destroyed by that which we feel is derogatory. We fall into unhealthy traps by having people call us names, and rather than laughing about it and using it as energy to build on, we fall into a trap of weakness and say, well, we're not wanted. I'm going to go to sleep for a while. Not fall into those traps of weakness. I think that as long as we feel, any of us feel, and I'm not talking about whether you're black or white, because we're all in the same trap. We're all in the same trap of those who are taking advantage of our energies for their benefits.
Those who are in power.
Rather than allowing us to be properly educated, and I mean all of us, Americans in general, to be properly educated to elevate ourselves from the ghetto of anywhere. I think that high taxation is one of the most dangerous things. It is so dangerous that we have not been able to, even with the education, elevate ourselves. Because in that way, we are being killed as well. So that when you are educated, you find that high taxation does not allow you to get your head out of the ghetto, because you cannot see where you're going. Because the more you make, the more they take, rather than having just 1% for everybody. No deductions for anybody. Take care of the poor as long as the poor is really poor, rather than allowing those strong who are poor to remain weak. You should keep them, give them encouragement to elevate themselves. And the only way you can do that is you put one taxation on everybody, so that whoever I am, whomever you are, you can see by every penny where you want to go and where you can go. Whether you want to be the highest educated person in the world, or whether you just want to make a lot of money and obtain material things, or if you want to just be what they call just a person who just makes enough money to get by. That should be the decision of the individual, not the government. This country is supposed to be run by the people, not by the government. But the people are not doing their job, because the people are allowing the government to take over and dictate to the people what they want the people to do, rather than the people doing the reverse.